Well, welcome to Walking in Spirit and Truth. I am Sandi Craig and your host for this evening, and I think we might get John Craig in here pretty quick. I hope so. Anyway, I just talked with him on the phone, and he says he might pop in and give us an update or something. So just as Bob says, we will anxiously wait to hear if that is so. I hope so. I want to hear too. Well, I don't know that I want to hear, but we'll find out. Anyway, I am Sandi Craig, and my husband John and I pastor a congregation here in Amarillo, Texas, named Life of Worship. We have our services on Shabbat and on Saturday, and at 2 p.m. we have our Torah portion, our Bible study, and it is on Zoom. And you can always email us and let us know you want to join us. And then at 5 p.m. we have our main encounter service, which we have more of message. It could be Torah portion, it could be something else that Yahweh wants to say, as well as ministry and worship. And you can be a part of that with our YouTube channel at lifeofworshipamarillo.org. And we would always be glad to know that you are there. And also you can visit our website and look at lifeofworshipamarillo.org and find out a little bit about our congregation, our Sukkot, and things that go on, and hopefully our next conferences, Yah willing. And that's always good too, right? Anyway, well, I do have someone with me right now, and he did come. I don't know how long he'll be on. It might just be a couple minutes, but here he is, Mr. John Craig. Hello, Mr. Craig. You know what? I was going to tell you, for some reason, I can't hear anything on my computer. So all I get to do is read your lips. You're not here to correct that for me right now. So you're going to have to wave at me, or we're going to have a signal when you are done.
Can you hear me now?
What you're saying.
Can you hear me now?
No, it's my computer. I couldn't hear the intro either. So everybody be patient, because John has sound and you can hear me, but I can't hear anything else. I know. Isn't that terrible? So I'm going to let you take the controls for a minute if you have something to say. And John, say something, because they said.
All right. So can y'all hear me? Can y'all hear me in the chat room? There we go. Joe says she can hear me.
Okay. Can you hear him?
All right. Looks like AMA Ladybug can hear me. Okay. All right. We're all good.
Are you? Okay. Yes. Misty's got you. Okay. So I'm going to let you take the controls right now and take it away. And when you want me in, like I said, I have no idea what you're saying unless I get in there with my phone. So are you going to do it?
Okay. All right. So here's, oops. Okay. There we go. So, I have been covered up with work today, so y'all forgive me for having my brain just a little scattered right now. And I'm going to be looking over at my other screen, which is, I don't know if you can see my hands. There we go. It's way over here on the other side of my desk. It's not close to my computer screen, so it's going to look like I'm looking really far away, but that's where I have some of my stuff that's pulled up. I wanted to give you guys a little update about what's been going on, and everybody, I think, is sitting on the edge of their seat because of all of the events that are going on. And I'm telling you, I'm sitting on the edge of my seat with all the events that are going on and trying to put the pieces together. And I still hold out hope for one reason or another. And I hope that you're still holding out hope. And if things don't resolve the way we think they should resolve, and things happen tomorrow that in ways that we don't want them to happen tomorrow, well, we're just going to go on. And actually, it's going to tell us something. It's going to be telling us that maybe we have something biblical getting ready to happen. So with that said, let me just hit a few different things real quickly. And forgive me, I feel like I have to look too far away, but I didn't have time to get things set up on my monitor. But what we've got going on, I guess what I want to do, let me pull up this other screen. By the way, if you're on Telegram, I am now on Telegram, and I post a bunch of different articles on there under the Craig Report. Now, you can find me at JL Craig on Telegram. And you can find the Craig Report on there. But I'm actually, so you can send me a private message on JL Craig. But if you want to see the articles that I'm posting with my little opine on the articles, you can see that and stay informed. At least stay informed what I'm staying informed with. Okay, so I'm pulling up. First off, one of the sources that I go to that seems to have over time has had information that makes sense, that has had a good track record. Of course, all information is fluid and things change quickly and change overnight. So one of these, so here's a couple different things. One is that President Trump issued a statement yesterday about the continuation of government, and it's a COG Con 2. So what does that mean? It means that the White House has set continuity of government condition to level 2. No action is required by you at this time. As an emergency relocation group, you are reminded that you should follow an order for continuity of operations occur. You must report to the alternate operating facility within 4 hours. And I'm sitting here thinking, okay, why are they doing this continuity of government with the President Trump's administration when it's on his last 48 hours out? See, this report came in, I think it came out last night around midnight or so. So are they planning on something? Is something going to happen at the inauguration? Well, let's talk about that for a second, because one of the other reports that we're picking up, and I think Mike Adams over at Natural News has done a really good job in getting information and to the American people, to let people know what's going on. And one of the things is that he was pointing out, I've seen articles on it as well, in regards to the type of National Guardsmen that are being called up to Washington, D.C. Now, as it stands right now, there are 30,000 troops in Washington, D.C. My question is, why do they need 30,000 troops in Washington, D.C. for an inauguration event? And because certainly they can bring in certain forces in amount to protect the inauguration from any type of rioters or anybody that would try to cause problems. And there's certainly not going to be any patriots going to be showing up. They're not going to be getting in the midst of all that. It's a highly protected zone, and no one wants to lose their freedom over something like that. Why do they need 30,000 troops? Why do they need Patriot missile systems brought in to Washington, D.C.? Why do they need air-to-air combat F-16s brought into the Washington or D.C. area? Why are they bringing in 50 Stryker vehicles, which carry the 50 caliber machine guns on them? Why such a big armament and buildup to protect Washington, D.C. for an inauguration event? When last time we had an inauguration with President Trump in 2017, they had all sorts of rioters there. There was all sorts of information that's come out, some videos that never got published on the mainstream media. Where there are fires, there are burnings, there was destructions, there were threats of bombs during the deplorable ball. I mean, I remember where there were some bombs that they were wanting to gas the people that were at that location. There were rioters in the street. They were attacking Trump supporters. They were all celebrating the inauguration. It was bad. There was all sorts of different things that were going on. There were threats, even to the point that Madonna had said, "I dream about burning down the White House." That's one thing that she said. Well, why? What's going on there? Well, when we look at now, we have a buildup within Washington, D.C. that looks more like a buildup to protect Washington, D.C. from a military attack. And we're not talking about just some militia groups showing up in Washington, D.C. We're talking about people that countries that have surface-to-air missiles, air-to-ground missiles that looks like there could be some type of attack where incoming troops from another country could be invading. And we've talked about that before here, where there has been a buildup of Chinese troops on the southern border and on the northern border. Of course, this is so full of rumors, and we have so many different things that are taking place that even on the coast, on the coastline over in California, they have these container ships that are backed up out off the coast where they're trying to bring them in, and hundreds and hundreds of container trucks that carry those big cargo containers. Well, we know that China has made those cargo containers into carrying missile launch systems. And the other concern is, how many troops may be stashed away on there. I don't know. There's all sorts of rumors. We're watching that information because it's very fluid. And we do know that China says be ready to go to war in a moment's notice. Now, before, they've talked about going to war with the United States for years. Back in 2006, a general got up and was talking about, hey, we're going to war with the United States. Well, is this the time that they're going to do it? I don't know. So it's interesting that the continuity of government plan was at level 2, and level 1 is full deployment of designated leadership and continuity staffs to perform the organization's essential functions from alternate facilities, either as a result of or in preparation for a catastrophic emergency. So are they planning for a catastrophic emergency? Looking at the troops, the Defense Secretary Miller was saying, hey, governors, and this is talking to governors east of the Mississippi, we've got 50,000 here, but I need more troops. I need you to send me more troops. There's some 400 and some odd thousand National Guardsmen across the nation. Basically, right now, we're looking at 1 in 10 have been called into service. So that's a significant amount of guardsmen, all with varying roles and responsibilities. At least 15,000 are those that are the frontline ones that are shooters. They would be the ones going to fight an incoming enemy. 15,000 of them. Then one of the things that took place is that the U.S. Marshal Service actually deputized 2,500 National Guardsmen. What are they going to do? Well, they're often used by the court system to marshals are used by the court system. They get the order to go out and arrest somebody, go pick up somebody and bring them in. That's one of the things that they use the U.S. Marshals for. So why would they do that too and deputize 2,500 National Guardsmen? Those are questions. How about this next question that I have? And this is from over there at the HalTurnerRadioShow.com. And it says that broadcast TV stations are told to prepare for martial law 72-hour emergency alert system preemption. Well, what's that about? And so this is from what one of the television station employees said. I work at a mid-sized TV station. We had just had a visit from the FCC along with 2 people with badges. I didn't get close enough to see what agency they were with. We've been told to prepare for all of our programming to be preempted from 8 a.m. Wednesday for up to 72 hours. They told my boss he can be held criminally liable if he doesn't allow their feed to air. He was almost in tears saying, I've never seen anything like this after 30 years in this business. And it really scared him and the district manager. So the author of this article said, hey, I reached out to the broadcasters today in an effort to verify or debunk the information that the FCC made contact to warn broadcasters about interfering with the FCC EBS system. I was expecting a denial, but what I got was actually shocking. Stations are sending employees home, and the stations put on autopilot in preparation for the coming declaration of martial law. And back during the Obama administration, news stations were required to buy a $20,000 piece of equipment that would allow the FCC and the emergency broadcast system to take over the controls of their studios to be able to begin broadcasting the information out. So take that for what it's worth. Is that going to happen? Well, we'll know tomorrow by 8 o'clock in the morning. I don't know if it's probably going to be Eastern time. So 7 o'clock Central and 6 o'clock Mountain, and you guys out in the Pacific Coast, whatever time that would be, 4 or 5 in the morning. We have to be looking at that. And then one of the things that keeps rolling over and over and over of information that keeps coming out is be prepared. Be prepared to stay in your homes. In fact, number of people that have voices out there say, stay at home, stay in your homes. So I guess when this emergency broadcast system goes off, that's going to be telling us what to do and if we should be, what we should do and where we should go. They've talked about power outages. I'm not trying to say anything fearful. I'm just saying this is what's being said out there. Rumors. Can they be confirmed? We don't know. Of course, they're going to be, if what's happening within our government, if as Mike Adams was saying, that word went out and the generals finally had an awakening that if China comes in and invades our nation, that the generals will be the first to be killed. Just understand that. So if that is the case, then, and the generals are like, we need to do something now and protect this nation and actually uphold our oath to the Constitution from to protect it from enemies, foreign and domestic, then we need to step up. Now, of course, I can't see any military officer out there or general be running blind and saying at the last minute, hey, I guess we better do our jobs. So they would certainly have all these plans in place, contingencies in place. The fact that we do have that 30,000 troops and it's growing in Washington, D.C. tells me that there's a lot more that is going to be protected than some buildings. And a lot more is going to be happening. Of course, you and I know, and a lot of us have carried this concern about about what's been happening because of treason among those that say there are elected representatives, but they've been acting like oligarchs. They've been going to Washington. They have been not only collecting a salary, but they've been making sweet backdoor deals like we saw with the COVID relief fund at the end of 2020, where they all of a sudden they're sending all this money as aid overseas. Well, we know from the past that that's how they launder money to kick back to themselves for their own campaigns and for their own pocketbooks. And that's how people in office become millionaires, because they're involved in this type of situation. Well, it's got to stop. This is all crimes against you, crimes against me, crimes against our nation, the people of the United States, and where they are getting, I'm not going to say unfair advantages, they're getting advantages of just determining what type of salary they want, and they just collect it. And they know that they can have control over people, manipulation, power, threats. Just watch and listen to the threats. AOC, Schumer, Pelosi, Schiff, how they're talking about that the Republicans need to be purged or re-educated. They need to be sent to camps. They need to, a good Republican is a dead Republican. And, I don't know. There's all sorts of things that are being said up there. And we need to consider that those threats are real threats. They're real. That should the inauguration go as planned tomorrow, and there's no other incident that takes place, and we've just been having what's a word that's been coming out lately, hopium. I was trying to think. It's been like a drug to where we will just hope that there's going to be something. Somebody's got to be wearing a white hat in Washington, by which that we can look to, that there's people that actually love this nation, and they're going to protect our nation, and they're going to do those things where we, the people out here in flyover country, are helpless to do, that we can't do anything. We have no connections. The only thing we have is our voices, and we make those voices known, and who knows, they're collecting the database because we've not agreed with the leftist plan to take over this nation. I hate to say it that way, but those are the concerns that we have. We have those because for 4 years we've seen how everybody has been attacking President Trump. They have come at him from the media, from the deep state, from foreign leaders, to the Bilderbergs, to the you name it. No one has liked President Trump except you and I, we the people of these United States. That man has had more stamina and fortitude to stand up against that and continue to have a successful record. And let alone, what did he do yesterday? He signed an executive order recognizing the right to life, not only for the unborn, but for the born. Those all the way up to the elderly and the infirm all have the right to life. And that was one of his biggest executive orders leaving the office, if he ends up leaving. Of course, you and I know that he's not leaving that office for the sake because he lost the election. He's leaving that office because if is it part of this big operation to the military is stepping in? They're going to do what they need to do and take control of a rogue government and rogue leadership and rogue bureaucracy and all of that craziness, where we're saying, please do something and reestablish what is right within our nation. All of us have been crying out to Yahweh, do something, relieve the pressure from all of this evil that's going on. Do you recognize that? And as we are studying out the Torah portion in Shemot in the book of Exodus right now, how the people were crying out for freedom. So we're really running a parallel with it. It's amazing what's in the Torah portion now is what's really relating to us right now. I wonder if Yahweh had planned that from the beginning that way. So here is something else that's going on, and that is how California teachers warned, do not show live inauguration to students, disregard any emergency broadcast. That's a headline. And basically the information reports of someone with firsthand knowledge to that. They were getting that information from the teachers union in California. Why? Because if something starts to happen and go down in Washington, D.C., and all those cameras are there, they do not want the children to see and start asking questions. That's my opinion, is that they would rather have something that they can go back and watch as a recording for those students, as opposed to whatever news may be breaking tomorrow. And then also CIA Director Hal Haspel, she resigned today. Well, in my opinion, good riddance. It wasn't fast enough. But after, but what did we find out? The DNI chief, I don't remember his name right now off the top of my head. I'm just going off the information that's running through my head. And he came out, here it is, Director of National Intelligence, John Ratcliffe. He assessed that China interfered in the 2020 federal elections, according to a letter transmitted to Congress. So that he did his job, and they did a research. They did find, they saw all sorts of connections there. I think there's a lot more in that letter than just China, because Italy came out and said, and there's a signed affidavit, Italy was involved in interfering in our elections. And so, and they also found other countries connected to that. And yet nothing was done. And here this comes out. And then it says in the letter, Ratcliffe alleges that the intelligence about China's election interference was suppressed by management at the CIA, which pressured analysts to withdraw their support from that view. Well, wouldn't that have been nice if they could just do their job and have done it maybe in December before the electoral process? But that's, that's why Joe Biden is not a lawfully elected president, and neither is Kamala Harris eligible for that position when Joe Biden is removed, because she's not a natural born citizen. Her parents were citizens of Jamaica and India, and she's basically, in my opinion, I kind of look at her as an anchor baby. She was born while her parents were here on a temporary status. So they weren't even residents when she was born. So, citing a report by the intelligence community analytic ombudsman Barry Zoloff, the director of national intelligence said some analysts were reluctant to describe China's actions as election interference because they disagreed with the policies of President Donald Trump. Can you believe that? They just disagreed with the policies of Donald Trump. Wow. And there's a lot more going on. We saw today that President Trump gave a farewell address. He got on a jet and he flew to Mar-a-Lago. At least that's where we think that he flew to. We've seen people leaving the White House. We've seen different things. He said he would not be there for Joe Biden to be part of the inauguration, but Vice President Pence is going to be there. So what's happening? It all looks like President Trump is going to be it looks like President Trump is going to be not going to be in Washington, D.C. tomorrow. It looks as if he is allowing a whole process to take place and a transition and all of that. But yeah, and I agree with you all. Here's the thing. Don't believe, like Joe said, do not believe all you see. Just remember, everything that happens in Washington, D.C., so much of it is theater. And so, in other words, how much of that is made up? I think President Trump has learned their game, and he's a very, very smart man and knows how to work it. So the next question is, this article I haven't read through. It's a new one that's just posted on there. But it does say something. If Chi-Com Joe gets sworn in, will that make him commander-in-chief? That's a good question. And here's the next question is, the intelligence agency has already determined that he has been connected with the Chinese communists, that he has been providing information to them, that his son was providing information to them, intelligence and that type of thing, that China Joe is not worthy of any type of intelligence even as commander-in-chief. That would be what he would be allegedly after the inauguration. My next question is, if you have someone that is not rightfully elected, then any type of inauguration is just a fraud, and it is deceit, and it's to point out that something is that they want you to think is true is not true. Things are going to have to play out. I really, really would like to be able to see what the next 72 hours holds before, and then come back to say, okay, this is what's going to happen the next 72 hours. But I can't do that. I'm sorry about that. But we're going to stay on top of it. We're going to be watching. We're going to be paying attention. We're going to be watching to see what our U.S. military is going to be doing, because honestly, that's the last option. That if the United States military does not uphold the Constitution, if these men and women who have fought for this nation and they've gone out and they've been sent overseas, and then they're coming back and they're seeing that our Constitution is being stomped on and walked all over and used and abused, at what point in time do these officers, commanders, and within the military say enough is enough and we're not going to go there anymore? I'm going to tell you this: we have to be so careful with the information that's out there. The QAnon information out there has to be very, very carefully looked at and watched, because there's so much disinformation that's been in there, and they've been basically telling people don't do anything. They've got it. Well, in one sense, I really hope that's true. We just have to know that there's other information and sources, and we, the people of the United States, are still the government of the United States. And those people that are in Washington, D.C. are still our elected leadership. Oh, I want to share this with you real quick, and I'm going to give it back to Sandy. And it has to do with the planet 7X Nibiru phenomenon. So I listened to Gil Broussard, who was on over the weekend on an interview, and he back in we had him at Life of Worship back in 2013, but he was talking about that either 2015, 2016 that he thought would be the arrival of planet 7X. And he calls it 7X because it's about 7 times the size of planet Earth. And if you don't know anything about it, basically it's a planet. You might call it a planet. It has a different orbital system that comes through our solar system back out. Gil Broussard has talked about it having about a 350-year kind of cycle through, and he looks at different things that have happened in history that would show that these are the times that it is entered and exited our solar system. Some have had more effect and some have other less effect. But he said if it doesn't come in 2015, 2016, that we're probably looking at 2021. He's also said that we'd expect it would pass by around Passover or at Passover. He's just come out and said, it'll come by at Passover. And so we would be able to start seeing it with the naked eye by the end of January, and that by February 20th, we're looking at 40 days out from Passover. And by then, it should be visible in the sky. And the tail of it, because it's going to be similar to a comet, which is very interesting because the movie Greenland talks about a comet that has this tail that's dropping debris on the Earth. So he said that where you would start to look for it, if we've got clear skies and with all the chemtrailing that started up after the first of the year, all that geoengineering, our sunset has been covered up and it's really hard to see. But where you see the sun go down on the horizon in the west, look up from that point up towards the left, and we should start be able to see a tail if it's coming in. And we won't see the object itself, but we'll see the tail. And then as we get closer to February 20th, and of course, the closer we get to Passover, that tail is going to be long and it should cover the sky. He said the Earth is going to pass through the tail twice, and there will be debris fallout. And then there's going to be 150 days. And as we come back around the sun, we'll go through that trail a second time. He said something very interesting, and he said this back in 2013, and it's always been in my mind, and I've always repeated it because it makes a lot of sense. I think that he said that the world would go into a global martial law before the arrival of this planet 7X, because they need to keep everybody in their homes. They need to have control over the emergency broadcast system. They're going to control the communications so that people will not panic, because once they start seeing it in the sky, there's going to be a lot of panic. And so he believes that they have orchestrated the COVID-19 lockdowns, which they started last year in March, and they have used this whole system of people getting sick. It's not deadly. It's you got a better life chance or a chance of living through it than even the common flu. But nevertheless, that they're using that, and they'll use it for the next lockdown. They're going to say something about, hey, these new waves of the coronavirus are dangerous. We got to get everybody back in their homes. They're going to lock it down and keep people in. They're going to declare martial law. And what a way to do that, because once people begin to recognize this system is going to be dangerous and even deadly, then that's they want to be able to control the populations. Now, what Gil Broussard has said, he believes that the part of the Earth that's going to be facing the debris trail when it starts to pass through it will be North and South America, and that it won't hit the other side of the planet, but North and South America, possibly Europe, but North and South America will be the main target, because he goes back to Revelation where it said a third of the Earth will be destroyed, and from these incoming objects. I don't know what that means. It's always, we'll speculate. Will it happen? We don't know. He also said that when Planet 7X passes by the Earth, and he said that it could come between the moon and the sun, that it'll cause, because of the plasma discharges, it will actually stop the Earth from rotating for about 24 hours. So research it on your own. That's just some information, but it's kind of interesting how all of these things may seem to be lining up. Whoever is president during the next 4 years is going to have an interesting ride, and I don't think there's anybody more competent than President Trump to bring this nation through. That if this is not the time of the greater exodus, then we certainly need competent leadership within our nation, and that's what my prayer is. So I know in the past, other sources have talked about these debris fields that are out there. They've talked about how that back on May the 12th was going to be the beginning of going into the debris trails. We did see a huge increase of fireballs over this last year. You can go look that up and resource that out for yourself. We've had an increase of that. We've been blessed that most of it burns up before it hits the ground. And we've just seen the objects in the sky and the meteors coming in, but they haven't done anything. So what a blessing that is. And we should thank y'all that we didn't have the showers. But what these sources have also said is that, well, it's so difficult to tell because you can't really see where those debris fields are out there in space, and to tell about what speed they're coming in at, that it could be delayed. So those are interesting thoughts that I want to leave you with. Why do I say these things and why do I talk about them? Because it's like the huge amount of earthquakes. I think they said last year we had 64 that recorded. It's like 65,000 recorded earthquakes in the earth. So it's a huge increase over the prior year. The number of volcanoes that are going off are huge. These are just the signs in the heavens. These are the signs in the earth. Of course, now we've got the wars and the rumors of wars and all this. We're living in a time that we're looking at, as we are studying out in the Torah portion, a great deliverance. So our next best thing is to hear what the Father's saying, because the testimony of those that make it through the second Exodus, that those people that went through the first Exodus will completely forget about that. They're going to they want to know what the Father did, because in our time. So what a tremendous time that we're living in. These are just the signs of the times. These are the times that God's not given us a spirit of fear, but that of power, love, and a sound mind, that we comfort ourselves in the Lord and we encourage one another all the more as we see that day drawing close. That's why we assemble together, to get the full part of that verse in, is to assemble together. Don't forsake the assembling of yourselves together, as is the habit of some, but encouraging one another, and all the more as we see that day drawing in. Anyway, there's an update. It's just off the cuff today. I wish I could have been a little bit more prepared, more succinct, but I hope that gives you some information. Hey, it's really a time to pray. I've been seeing that in the chat room. I've been seeing what y'all been talking about. Thank you so much for participating that way. And I'm going to bring Sandi back on. To you, Sandi.
All right, Mr. Craig, thank you for your update. And I appreciate it. And we all appreciate it, especially in this day, in this hour, and the timing that we're in right now. And I got to hear some of it on my phone. I still can't hear you on my computer, and I can't have my phone and my computer on at the same time. We know what happens when we do that. But I thank you so much for taking some time out. I know that you had an unexpected day. So I will let you go if you want to go. That's totally up to you. You can let me know by waving or something.
I'm gonna hang out here for a little bit.
I don't know what you're saying, so you have to type it into me.
I'll send you a comment. No.
All right. So you're gonna have to type me in private chat or something because I have no idea what you are saying. Anyway, we are going to get back into the buckler teaching. I do not know how far we'll get tonight based on the things that the timing. But I wanted to review just a few things because this teaching actually is so appropriate for the day and the hour we live in, when we know that Yah is the one that stands in between. Part of what the shield is, the buckler, his truth, his word, Yeshua. He's the one that stands between us and the enemy. Yeah, physical, spiritual, but I believe there's a physical aspect to it too, because Yahweh knows that we fight here, that what's happening in the heavenlies is manifest here as well. So just as a reminder, when we look at the Hebrew word Magan and we see the Mem and the Gimel and the Noon, and we put it all together, this is just review, so I'm not going to go back. You listen to, I think, the first part for this one. It indicates that there's strength and power of the shield from lifting up the word of Yahweh. It's the living waters that bring forth life. Okay, that's one aspect of what Yeshua is as our shield. But there's so much more, because David said that Yahweh was his shield, his Nagan. And we've talked about this before, his Magan, which is a play on the word Nagan. And of course, a shield means protector. Nagan means the music, or the music played on a stringed instrument. So, and David was a musician. He played those instruments. So David was not only saying that Yahweh was his protector, but he was saying he's his source of shalom. He's that source of peace in the times of great trial. Where are we right now? We are in times of great trial, but he is still our song. He is still our source of peace. He is the shield and the protector. He is the one that stands in between. Hallelujah for that. So we don't have to fret. Though our flesh might want to fret right now, we don't need to. So let's take a little bit closer look at Yehovah Magan. That again, we see Psalm 18:2, my shield and the horn of my salvation. Psalm 28:7, Yahweh, my strength and my shield. Psalm 115, 9 through 11. You can look at that, our help and our shield. Psalm 59:11, Yahweh, our shield. Yahweh, God, our sun and shield. 119, 114, my hiding place and my shield. 144, Psalm 144:2, my shield in whom I take refuge. And there's more besides just the Psalms, but it's a reminder. He's trying to tell us something. He says it over and over and over and over. Why? Because in this day, in this hour, and in every day and hour in times past, because people were going through things, we need to remember that it's not about us, and we don't have to rely on our own strength. We simply use the word as our weapon. We go where he goes, do what he does, and say what he says. And in that, we are protected. The safest place to be in the midst of everything is crumbling around you is in the center of his will, proclaiming that word. So Abraham also, he knew Yahweh. And he knew that Yah was convenient. He was always on time. So when we look at, as David talks in Psalm 91, Magan, he's a shield. It's referencing that he's the shield that completely covers us in all areas of his children's lives. Does that shield completely cover you? Does that word, do you use that word? Do you armor up? Do you let it just a time go by and say, well, I haven't had time? Well, look around us right now. It's spiritually as well as physically. We don't have time not to have time, because the day and the hour is here. is here where we have to utilize the shield and the weapons of the warfare which he's given us. We can't just let them sit on the shelf any longer. And that means we need to activate that word around us. Ephesians 6:16 says, in addition to all, taking up the shield of faith with which you will be able to extinguish all the flaming arrows of the evil one. So here we are. This is about the protector, the shield of the Spirit, the shield of his word. The shield has the capacity to literally quench fiery darts, not just darts, fiery arrows. It's much more than being shot at. There's a fire that's behind them, that's in them, that's with them. That means they are so destructive, but they're not going to come near us. Though 1,000 may fall at our side and 10,000 at our right hand, it will not come near us. But we can't just expect it to happen and not take part. We take up that shield, that word, Yeshua, and that shield covers us. That shield covers us. You know, Yahweh says, do not be afraid, Abraham. I am your shield, your exceedingly great reward. Then he made him a promise. Look now towards heaven and count the stars. If you were able to number them, so shall your descendants be. Genesis 15:5. Genesis 15:5. So to Israel, the nation that came from Abraham, the nation whom Yahweh promised to bless all the nations of the world, Yah said, happy are you, O Israel, who is like you, O people saved by Yah, the shield of your help and the sword of your majesty. I love that word. His majesty. Your enemies shall submit to you, and you shall tread down their high places. Deuteronomy 33:29. So Yahweh made covenant with Israel by his personal name, Yehovah, Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, by calling him Yahweh, my shield, Yehovah, my shield. So David laid hold of that covenant promise, what God was for Abraham and what God was for David, what God was for Israel. Guess what? He is that same thing for you and me, for he is the same when? Yesterday, today, and forever. Get that. Get that in your spirit. So when fear tries to come upon you, you remember who you are so that you can cast it aside and declare Yahweh is the same yesterday, today, and forever. He is my shield. I shall not fear. In Psalm 35, David calls on Yah to take up his cause and contend with those who are contending with him. Well, folks, we have a lot of people contending with us right now, and we need to call out and say, Yah, take up your shield, take up and can defend us. You said shield. We've talked about this. Shield also means that he is the one that stands between us and the enemy. So that shield is very, very important. Psalm 35, I encourage you to read it. In fact, I think we will read it, not this moment, but we're going to read it before the end of the evening. Not only is Yah thought of as a shield, but there's something else we need to see that when this happens, when David calls on God, on Yahweh to take up his cause and contend with those who are contending with him, take hold of shield and buckler and stand up for my help. Psalm 35:2. The kings and the tribal leaders are supposed to be that for the people too. Who are the kings that are in place and the tribal leaders? That would be, is just as John spoke of earlier, there is an obligation for the generals, for the president, the real president, to stand up and protect us just as he took oath and not let treasonous people come forth. If it was in any other area, business or something, it would be put down. But because it's been done this way, we think it's okay, or we don't. But they use that as their excuse. It's okay to take hold and treasonously steal a nation. And that's what's happening. But remember, the leaders are supposed to also stand and protect their people. So it says in Psalm 47:9, the princes of the people have gathered together, the people of Yah of Abraham, for the shields, plural, of the earth belong to God. He is greatly exalted. Now think of it that way. The shields of the earth belong to Yahweh. O Yahweh, behold our shield and look upon the face of your anointed. Psalm 84:9. For our shield belongs to Yahweh and our king to the Holy One of Israel. Psalm 89:18. So David, when you look at the way all of this is worded and you put it all together, David himself was considered to be a shield for his people. Do we have that obligation to be a shield to those that Yahweh has put under us or given us charge over? I would say yes, he is the shield, but just as he is the light, we are supposed to be lights that emanate from what he is, from him living within us. So therefore, since he is the head and we are the body, that same concept would be described of his character, because we're supposed to become more like him. So though he is our protector and he is everyone's protector, he is their shield, we have an obligation to be a shield ourselves. We have an obligation to protect those he's given us charge over. You know, it says the Son of David was anointed to reign forever on his throne, a shield for all who trust in him. He is our shield. Yeshua HaMashiach is our shield, in whom we can take refuge and find protection and find strength and find help. He is our King. But there's so much more. There's so much more. Hebrews 11:1 says, now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. The evidence is Yeshua's resurrection and how Yah helps us daily, on a daily basis. We weren't there when Yeshua was raised from the dead, but yet we can see exactly how it affects our lives. The greater our belief in Yahweh's awesome power, the more we trust, the more we stand confidently, even in the midst of battle. The more we trust in his power, in him being able to use us and work in us and through us and around us, the more we trust that he is our shield and our buckler, he is our strong tower, the more we will be able to protect ourselves from Satan attacks. He is protecting us, but we armor up. He's not going to put it on us ourselves for himself. He says, you take up the armor, you take up the shield, you do it. What is belief and faith are connected together? In Matthew 14, when Yeshua walked on the water, Peter was able to walk on that water for a time. But then he he took his eyes off Yeshua and he put it on the water and the waves that surrounded him and everything else. So his eyes were, and his gaze was no longer steadfast. And glug, 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 he began to sink. How many times do we forget that Yah can truly do all things and there's nothing out of his grasp, but we lose our focus and our gaze? That's why when we see this word in these phrasings, it's talking about lifting us up too. He lifts up our eyes. Psalm 91 is such a great protection scripture, and you should be reading that every day over you and your household and those in your community, even those that Yah has given you charge over. These are great promises, and these are promises for an end time generation. It was written, this chapter is written guarantee of Yah's covenant with us and so much more. Man, you read that and it builds you up when we understand, when we truly get it in our spirit that he is our shield and our buckler. Psalm 91:4. In the midst of all that has been spoken about your protection, Yahweh gives us a key to safeguard against all the things the world may throw at us. All the things. And that key is his word. That key is truth. John 17:17 says, sanctify them by the truth. Your word is truth. God's word is truth, and we stand upon it when it's convenient, when we have time, when it gets scary around us. No, we stand upon it all the time in every situation, and we surely trust on it in the midst of an attack when we're going through something. Not only is Yah's word truth, it's the shield, it's the buckler, it's for the battlefield that we're in, this battlefield of life, this battlefield of our nation, this battlefield for life. That's what we're in right now, and we're in a battlefield. We may not see it. I can't imagine what the heavenlies look right now if our eyes could be unveiled to what's happening around us, because what's manifest here is just an nth probably of what's going on there. But there's something else I want us to look at. When we study these two words, shield and buckler, we see that in battle, these are weapons used for different purposes. We've talked about that. But yet there's so much more. The word of Yah is what you defend yourself with when a situation arises. We know there's offensive and defensive parts here, but we've got to trust in him. And I want us to take a look at another area here as we're pushing through this. In Genesis 15:1, we've already read it once. Do not fear, Abraham. I am a shield to you and your reward. I want us to look at the architecture of the Hebrew scriptures so that we can understand what's happening even a little bit more, because the nuances of the message are sometimes communicated through the structure that Yah sets up in his word. So sometimes rearranging the word order tells us what's most important. Sometimes the consonants doubled to add something to the word or the message Yah's trying to convey to us. Sometimes a particle is added to a verb because it changes its tone, but we miss all of these nuances when we look at the English. So it's difficult sometimes to navigate through the scriptures and completely understand unless we're going back to the Hebrew context of the word. And the subtle alliterations are lost in our translation. It's lost in translation. Absolutely. For example, when we look at the word unashamed, arom, A-R-O-M, in Genesis 2, it's also directly related to the word translated for cunning, A-R-U-M, in Genesis 3. There's a relationship between those two words. Why would you say that? Because there's a relationship I want to bring out here so that we have some deeper understanding of shield and buckler. You can think of Hebrew like the supporting structure of a building. It's the girders. You may not ever see them, but they're there to support the message. They're there to support the word, to convey to us the power and strength. There's so much we have to learn. That's why we lose the relationship between Adam and Eve and the naked snake, naked Adam and Eve, naked snake. We lose all that. And we're not studying that right now. That's another night. But when we think about all of these nuances that we miss, they're really the supports of the word of Yah. So let's look at the word Magan, shield, and let's look at it as a support of what we're trying to learn and understand. It's connected to a word in the previous story, which, remember, man's the one that put all the punctuation and chapters and things in, and it's the word M-I-G-G-E-N. Why is this important? Guess what that word means? Delivered. So now there's something related to a shield and deliverance. I don't know about you, but I want deliverance. When Melchizedek proclaims that it is Yahweh who's delivered Abraham from his enemies, what we see is this word is used, a variation, to show that Yah himself announces that he is Abraham's shield. So there's something related there from deliverer to shield. The same word that describes Abraham's refusal to accept the booty, to accept all that was the tithe that was there, or not the tithe, the booty, everything that was given from the conquest, is also the same word used to describe the announcement for his great reward. Let's look at Genesis 14:13, to Bala'e Barit, okay? Then a survivor came and told Avram, the Hebrew. Now, he was residing by the oaks of Mamre, the Amorite, brother of Eshcol and brother of Aner, and they were allies. Bala'e Barit, okay, with Abraham, and now in this promise. And now let's compare it, because do you hear that, Barit? Do you hear that? That should immediately cause you to pick up on something right there. Let's look at Genesis 15:18, and it says, on that day, Yahweh made a Barit covenant with Avram, saying, to your descendants I've given this land, and from the river of Egypt as far as the great river, the river Euphrates. So now we see this relationship between the two words, and it's like they're on the same structure. They're helping build that same picture. But in English, we lose it. There's a relationship there. And unfortunately, you have to look at the plans. You have to go back and look at like you're an architect, and look at the initial plans of the building to notice what Yah's trying to tell us. So what do we take away from that? We aren't living in the time of Abraham. Most don't speak Hebrew, at least not fluently. But there's a lesson he wants to tell us. He wants us to understand, one that we might not ever anticipate or imagine, is that Abraham's military rescue, his military experience, his conquering of the kings there to save others, it's connected to something he probably never thought about. But who could have guessed that Abraham's rescue and his encounter with Melchizedek and his refusal to take all the loot from the king of Sodom really becomes the foundation of the blessing of Abraham? Because there's a relationship, and we miss it. There is something there that's connected, and then you bring in Sheol. There's something there. Who could have foreseen that Yahweh would do with what he would do with that inheritance? What would he would do? Here, Abraham's ordinary life. He probably thought he had an ordinary life, but there was he takes the ordinary and makes them extraordinary. He's building this structure within the Hebrew scriptures that's trying to tell us who he is and what his plan is, but yet we miss it. He's using you. He's building within you and using you as a structure and as a foundation in his plan, if we'll allow ourselves to be used, if we would truly understand what he's trying to say. It's so good. I want us to look at one last thing before we go. And I know we're over time, but I'm going to take some extra time, just a little bit. Let's look at we've looked at Psalm 3, and we're going to look at it one more time and look at another aspect of this scripture. Okay. And that is, as we read it, Psalm 3, 3-4. But you, Yahweh, are a shield around me. As we've talked about. My glory, the one who lifts my head. I call out to Yahweh, and he answers me from his holy mountain. We've learned what shield is. We've learned of different aspects of what shield is. We've talked about it surrounding. We've talked about it standing between us and our enemies. We've talked about so many things. But when we look at Magan, I want you to, there's a connection. Again, these structures, this connection with words, the roots of words, and words that are similar, that are in families and things like that, this word is also derived from the Hebrew ganon, to defend. So now we have deliverer, and now we have to defend. But think of Magan and ganon. Do you hear something else in there? It's also the root of gan, or gana, garden. So what other aspect could David have had in mind when he was saying this very thing? What could it be? What was he thinking? Was he thinking about a piece of metal to hold in front of him? Or was he talking about a hedge or a wall that completely surrounded him? In other words, it was a protected garden. Gan Eden. When we are in the presence of Yah, something happens. When we are worshiping, which is part of our weaponry, by the way, guys, there's something that happens. Raising our hands, the enemies fly. I mean, there's just so much that we, especially as the Hebrew roots community, we don't understand what worship is. And there is a connection to our armor in worship. But also, when David says he's surrounded by everything, he's put behind a secure wall. Everything, as we trust in him. He puts us in the garden so that we can delight in him. We walk into his presence. We worship him to get into his presence. We pray, we intercede. Our goal in worship is and as a servant and as a vod is to get into his presence as his servant, to do what he wants us to do. But he delights in us delighting in him. So in the garden, when we go to that place, we can roam freely. We can know that he placed us there for a purpose. Has he placed you where you are for a purpose? Yes. Does he want it to be beneficial to you? Well, let's look at what does Jeremiah say? For I know the plans I plan for you, says Yahweh. Plans to prosper you, not to harm you. Plans to give you a hope and a future. That means that as we delight in him, he pours out his blessing because we choose to focus. Remember, we talked about the beginning with Peter. We choose to focus on him and trust in him. And so we have no fear. In the garden, you have no fear. In his presence, you have no fear. Now, we have a job. There are things we have to do. But we have no fear in the garden because it belongs to Yah himself. And he oversees it. But he gives us a job to care for it. And that goes back to when we said that we are a shield to those around us as well. He is our shield, big S, but we are a shield as well to those that he's given us charge over. So as we take care of the garden, as we take care of what he's given us charge over, we get to relish and roam freely and be confident in who we are as we are in his presence as well. We're not the creator but this is a place of protection for us. He is his Magan, his Gana closes me, his wall, his shield. Not his shield in that it's a wall or a hedge that surrounds us. He is that hedge. Have you ever prayed about that hedge of protection? I have. I grew up hearing my mom pray about that. That is Yahweh himself. When Yahweh surrounds you, when he surrounds me, when he surrounded David, he protects. His protective hedge is his glory. The cloud that went before the pillar of fire at night. Remember, glory and cloud always go hand in hand in scripture. When you read it, one can be used as the other. Anyway, what is glory? It's that word kavod, and it's used for David. He proclaims that in the safety of God's garden, in the safety of Yah's garden, he knows that Yah has given him a purpose, has given him significance, has a plan for his life, just like he has a plan for your life. Not just to exist, not to be defeated. You are the victor, and Yahweh, through Yahweh, and we enforce the victory in everyday life because we trust in him without fear. David's importance is the extension of the majesty of Yahweh. Your significance comes through him. Remember, we become the bondservant, but not just that. We are also called as children. We do the will of the Father, but in that, we don't want to steal his glory, but yet he lifts us up. He lets us delight in him. He lets us He lets us experience that victory, that extension of this of his majesty. The very fact that Yah has placed David, has placed us within that protected garden is a sign that David mattered to God. When he places you, when you get into that place of his presence where his glory resides, you know that you matter to him. And let me tell you right now, you do matter to him. You do. You are significant. You are important, and you are part of his plans. Don't forget that. What do we learn from David's declaration? What do we learn? If you could look carefully at the course of your own life, do you see the moments that he's been watching over you? Do you see, wow, if I would have turned this way or that, it could have brought destruction, but he knew all along, even though I threw a fit going along that journey. I do. I can see it very clearly in my son's life. I can see that in what I may be fighting. Sometimes I'm fighting tooth and nail to get out, yet I'm fighting Yah's very protection, that hedge that's surrounding me, and I don't even know it. Maybe that's you. Maybe that's you. Can you see that all you've deserved didn't come to pass? Well, hallelujah for that. Because what we deserve is death. We've sinned. We've missed it. We missed the mark. But he saved us. He's redeemed us. He's called us up. He is, through that redemption, we become that firstborn. We are Israel. We get to be a part, as grafted in to his kingdom. You know, maybe you were actually in the garden and you didn't even realize it because you're under his protection. It's like you're under that scepter that was extended to Esther. You're under that. You're surrounded by his protection. But like Jacob, you didn't know that God was in the place, in this place, that he had been operating the whole time because our eyes weren't lifted up. Our gaze wasn't upon him. It was upon our circumstances. It was upon the waves. It was upon everything that was happening around us. And now we need to pray that our eyes are open so that we can see. And if we can't see, we still trust as we're seeking him out, putting on the armor that he's got us. And we know that he's carrying us through these times that are ahead. You are safe. You are safe. And the one last thing I want to say before John comes in is if you can right now, I want you to turn to Psalm 35. If you would, Psalm 35. I am looking for mine, so hold on just a moment. Okay. This is for this day and this hour. The word, pray the word. It's powerful, okay? Pray the word. And in this time, when many of us, the enemy would like our feelings of emotion for the people of faith that the emotion would rise up and we would feel defeated, but we're not. We cling to that word. Now, if you've opened your word up, I want you to pray it along with me, and I want you to put your name in, or your household's name, or all of the above. Adonai opposes those who oppose you. Fight against those who fight against me, or you. Grasp your shield and protective gear and rise to my defense. Brandish spear and battle axe against my pursuers. Let me hear you say, I am your salvation. May those who seek my life be disgraced and put to confusion. May those who are plotting harm for me be repulsed and put to shame. May they be like chaff before the wind, with the angel of Adonai to drive them on. May their way be dark and slippery, with the angel of Adonai to pursue them. For unprovoked, they hid their net over a pit. Unprovoked, they dug it for me. May destruction come over him unawares. May the net they conceal catch them. May they fall into it and be destroyed. Then I will be joyful in Adonai, in Yehovah. I will rejoice in his salvation, in my salvation, in Sandy's salvation, in your salvation. All my bones will say, who is like you? Who can rescue the weak from the stronger than they, the poor and the needy from those who exploit them? Malicious witnesses come forward asking things about which I know nothing. They repay me evil for good. It makes me feel desolate as a parent bereaved. But when they were ill and they wore sackcloth, I myself fasted. I can pray that what I prayed for them might also happen to me. I believed as I would for my friend or my brother. I bent down in sorrow as if mourning my mother. But when I stumble, they gather in glee. They gather against me and strike me unaware. They tear me apart unceasingly with ungodly mocking and grimacing, and they're grinding their teeth at me. I think about this with President Trump right now too. I'm just thinking about this. Adonai, how much longer will you look on? Rescue us from those evil assaults. Save us. save the lives that we have, our lives from the lions. We will give you thanks in the great assembly. We will give you praise among huge crowds of people. Don't let those who are wrongfully my enemies gloat over us. Wrongfully, our enemies gloat over us, and those who hate us unprovoked, don't let them smirk at us, for they don't speak words of peace, but devise ways to deceive the peaceful of the land. They shout to accuse us. Aha, aha, we saw you with our own eyes. You saw them, Yahweh. Don't stay silent. Yahweh, don't stay far away from us. Wake up, get up, oh my Elohim, my Yehovah, defend us in our cause. Give judgment for us, Yahweh, our Elohim, as your righteousness demands. Don't let them gloat over us. Don't let them say to themselves, aha, we got what we wanted, or say we swallowed them up. May those who gloat over us in our distress be disgraced and humiliated. May they be aggrandized themselves at our expense, be covered with shame and confusion. But may those who delight in your righteousness shout for joy and be glad. Let us say always, how great is Yahweh, who delights in the peace of his servants. Then our tongues will tell of your righteousness and praise you all day long. All right. Pray the word. Stand and call things that are not as though they are. John, I'm going to give it over to you, but that means you've got to end the show because I can't hear you.
Okay, well, nobody could hear me there because I had my mic muted there too. So I just want to say to everybody, just thank you for joining us. Those in the chat room, your comments, love them very much. Great teaching, Sandi. And if you want more information about Life of Worship, just go to our website, www.lifeofworshipamarillo.org. We do have a Facebook page called Life of Worship Amarillo, and you can go there and connect with us there. Also, if you would like to contact us regarding whatever it is, prayer requests or send information, or if you want to be part of our Zoom Torah portion, you'll need to send us an email, and that's going to be at it's LOW at lifeofworshipamarillo.org. And we can send you a link whenever we have Torah portion. You can be part of our Torah portions on Zoom on Shabbat. If you're ever in Amarillo, Texas, we would love to have you come by. We have our Torah portion at 2 p.m. on Shabbat and our regular worship services at 5 p.m. So with that said, if you like what we're doing here and you want to be a supporter of this ministry, please be praying for us. We do have a donate button on our website. And if you want to give financial support, we'd surely appreciate that. And until next time, for Sandi and for me, John Craig, shalom.